Okay,
Hello,
so just
everybody.
to
Yes.
recap for the audience's sake, we previously typed use ESTP. We stopped halfway through. We'd say we'd come back with some questions and direct my attention here accordingly during this half of it.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. I went home, came up with some questions, and yeah, we'll just run through these. They're in no particular order. I'm just going to start shooting stuff at you. Most of it is into the category of I see myself do this thing a lot. What function do you think would be responsible for me doing that? So, see, the first one. Let's see. The first one. Whenever somebody does something that doesn't make sense to me, my first reaction is, well, they must have information that I don't have. That's why they're doing something I wouldn't do. And so maybe I should try to find out what their information is, why they're doing something different than what I would expect. Uh, does that reflex to think that they must know something that I don't? Is that attributable to a specific function?
Yeah, I'd say it's attributable to NI or
Okay.
fourth spot NI, but it may play out even in dominant NI. The idea that if somebody else does something, they've got a universalizable reason for doing so versus just their own particular shit. Like, why is that guy going around smelling dog poop? Well, the only reason is because that guy, for whatever reason, likes to smell dog poop. It doesn't generalize at all, right? So,
Yep.
but like NI person, like Rachel gets upset when she doesn't like people doing like affirming plastic surgery that they've gotten done because she thinks it represents a universalization of the norm that you should get plastic surgery done, right? Even though it just represents their individual insecurities or legitimate concerns or whatever you want to call it, you know.
Okay. Let's see. Up next, man, I used to, let's see. I used to date this gal, and one of the things that she would do is I found out I was susceptible to something I would call chasing the ball syndrome. During an argument, she would throw an accusation at me, and I would say, in the middle of this argument, she'd go, "Oh, you're just a misogynist," for an example. I would say, "Oh, she thinks I'm a misogynist." So if I go get her a bunch of reason and evidence to show her that I'm not a misogynist, she'll think that I'm not, and she won't be mad about this. So I would go off and get all these, well, no, here's all these examples of disproving your accusation here. And then she would just throw another thing. I throw another, oh, well, you're just pick another bad adjective. And I would go off chasing and defending that thing. Now, that, I heard you, well, let me stop there.
I know all about that.
Is this, now wait a second, I think you're going to say that you dated a chick one time and that chick used to try to hurt your feelings, and every time she did, you would stop and evaluate the accusation for accuracy. I heard you say that at one time. Are those two things the same thing?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking.
And what it represents is TI tool and FI polar. They're trying to hurt our feelings. The response to that is, hey, that's not okay for you to hurt my feelings, rather than what you're saying is factually incorrect.
Damn it.
But we can learn that, though. We can learn that and apply it in the future. Even though it doesn't naturally come to us attention-wise, we can remember, oh, wait, I remember this thing. This person's just trying to hurt my feelings. So it's not going to do any good to tell them that they're wrong. It happens all the time in the live stream, but I still spend all kinds of time explaining to them why they are wrong.
Fair enough. All right, let's keep going. Next, this is, would you consider your type to be the nature part of nature and nurture, or not really?
Yeah.
Okay. Next, okay, there are a couple of things that make me wonder if I do have some FI somewhere, or so, I don't know. Like here's a couple of examples. Like, here's what I mean. If I'm watching TV, I really don't like if you ever see those things where it shows like somebody somebody doing a bike trick and then they wreck and you could tell they're extremely injured, and like the guy jumps the big ramp and you can tell the landing goes really wrong. I don't like seeing that stuff. Is that
I think that's more sympathetic SI than it is FI, because that's not about their emotional feelings. That's about their physical well-being.
It is too, because I'll get like a physical like chest pang, almost like almost like similar to the shame shiver thing. But
SI is an absolute value for you, so that means it's, even though it's unconscious and ignoring, you uphold it as an absolute value, an end in itself, right? Rather than I have to eat so that I like purely instrumentally so that I can have food in my body. For you, SI positive stuff, probably, especially the memory kind of it, rather than so much the physicality kind of it, but the memory kind of it for you in the past is an absolute value.
Now, would another thing that I was going to ask in the same category is, like, right here where I live, it's very cold right now. There's 8 or 10 inches of snow. It's very cold outside. There's a dog down the street, one of my neighbors, and he lives outside. And I'm new to this neighborhood, but it bothers me driving past that dog.
Yeah. Well, that's FI polar, dude. And even you telling me about it bothers me. Like for example, I don't get to share the details, but there's an equivalent kind of thing-ish over there, and once I determined this thing that I didn't like about it, every time I drive past that spot, I don't look, so I don't know like what's going on, right? And that's FI polar. We value our feelings a lot, and especially we have value feelings about like animals and kids and stuff. Like you probably can't read certain kind of news articles without it sticking with you and stuff. If you're like me anyway. But the thing is, FI polar does not mean we don't have feelings. It means, number one, we really don't like to see suffering at all. And number two, we can't trust our feelings. Like, there was some time back where I was depressed and having a dopamine crash, various things going on at once. And I was like, oh, I miss Los Angeles. But I couldn't trust those feelings and say we should move back to Los Angeles, because those feelings were temporary, and I got back to normal pretty quick, and obviously don't want to go back to Los Angeles.
Oh, I used to live in Chicago, and I think the same thing about Chicago. Moving on, though, let's see. Next, the one thing I've never understood about your NI question is like the one where you make the really long sentence with all the redundancies and you have them send it like narrow it down. Was the point of that? Did you want the shortest functional sentence, or were you looking for the shortest one with what the person would consider the relevant details?
Well, whatever they give me is informative, right? Like, if they give me the shortest possible, then that exemplifies a lot of NI. And if they give me something that doesn't include any of the redundancies, but includes more specifics, it's kind of medium. It's a polar test, because what happens is if you give that sentence to somebody who's NI polar, they can't do it really at all. They go and give you a lot of details in a sentence, including some of the redundancies and stuff.
Gotcha.
So it's checking for that most of all. The polar tests are first and foremost checking to see the blind spot. And if it's not the blind spot, then it's the blind spot or something else.
All right. Sounds good. Well, let's see. And some of these questions I got answers to, like since I wrote them down. Let's see. One of the things. Let me step. What is daydreaming? Because I thought until I started watching your test, your typing sessions, and realized that my NE was not very good. I thought I had any running out of my ears because I daydreamed all the time. So what is daydreaming?
Well, I mean, I think most broadly,
Function wise.
daydreaming is just being in a spot where you're lost in your head, thinking about stuff, and sort of out of the realm of sensory observation and such. So, what form that takes? It can take the form of like, I wonder. The other day, I thought, I wonder where the word "fast," meaning to abstain from eating, comes from. So I just asked the AI. I didn't really daydream about it much, but sometimes I'll muse about possible things. But sometimes I might daydream in ways that are like, oh, I wish I won the lottery. Then I would have so much money.
Those are nice. Those are fun. Those are fun.
Mhm. But I
Uh,
think pretty much everybody has some form of daydreaming.
um, all right. Here's the thing: if I'm hanging out with someone and they start complaining about, I don't know, me and this person are hanging out and they make a complaint about something that we're watching or whatever, I end up, if the person who complains, if the person complains, I end up trying to think of reasons why the man, I'm not explaining this question at all. Um, why do they hate this? Why do they when if you were to complain about, I don't know why such and such would do, stuff like this, my reflex would be to sit over here. Well, maybe they do this, and maybe they this, and here are all the reasons they might be doing that, even if I didn't think they were good reasons. But I have that reflex to do that. What function causes me to do that?
Well, it's TI correctness. In other words, there are plenty of reasons. They're basically claiming there aren't very many reasons, and you're saying yes, there are plenty of possible reasons. But then the generating of possible reasons is extrovert intuition, which is going to play out relatively strongly for you in some sense from an external perspective anyway. Like you'll always have enough extroverted intuition to empower whatever you want to extrovertedly sense. So whatever you want to do, you're going to have enough ideas to generate stuff to do, and you'll generate ideas that are required in the process of doing that thing as much as is needed. But it's going to be in service of your extroverted sensing.
Okay. Let's see. Next is misinterpret cues. All right. So, with regard to procrastination, like I only procrastinate. I only procrastinate on the things that I have to do. Like last time we talked about my tags being out of date. I was wrong. I said 7 months. It was actually 9 months I was out of date. I did finally get stopped by a cop. I had to get the tags. But what I'm getting around to is I'll be lazy about stuff like that, but I'll have hobbies where I'll come home and I'll work for hours and hours every day. What function makes me lazy about things that I should do, but full of energy about stuff that I find entertaining?
I mean, I would say that seems to be common amongst the action types, which is to say NE and SE DOMs, but also generally common among perceivers. That the thing is, what extroverted sensing dominant means is that you want to retain the ability to make a decision on the fly rather than have committed ahead of time to what you're going to do later. So the thing is about stuff you have to do, it's like that kind of requires you to commit probably to doing it at some point, like on Tuesday I'm going to take care of this or something. And that's just not something that we perceivers tend to like to do, because we like to keep our options open. But it's one of the rare distinctions. It's not a cognitive function distinction. I think is pretty valid. The distinction between perceivers and judgers. That's if you actually do the J's and P's right. For us, the P's are right, but for introverts, it's backwards. Anyway, so I think the answer to that is that it's one of the things that I don't really have a great explanation for regarding extroverted sensing, because extroverted sensing very, very bad, like 7 or 8, like where it is with me, that results in a lot of procrastination, shit tons. It's somewhat has more to do maybe with the way you procrastinate also. Like for people with SE 7 or 8, I'll remind myself to do a task 50 times over the course of weeks before I actually do it, and it takes like 5 minutes to do it. I will have spent 45 minutes in time reminding myself to do a 5-minute task. I suspect as an ESTP, you don't have that active a relationship with reminding yourself. You probably have it on a calendar, or maybe just you notice it again, you know?
Yep, I write stuff down.
Or you write stuff down, yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's consistent with SI backstack.
Okay. Let's see. Feelings. All right. This one may fall under that same category of the SI that you were talking about. I do tons of what I think. I've heard you talk about harm prevention with people, and I think I do have done lots of harm prevention over the years. I mean, things like I used to carry weapons for defense purposes of the people I cared about, and lots of animal care stuff. Live out in the country and you're surrounded by coyotes, so I gotta trap and kill and fight off the coyotes and the raccoons trying to kill my cats and chickens and stuff like that. So I do a lot of that. And I was gonna ask you about that harm prevention, if that is FI, but based on your answer about the dog down the street and the bike crash, it sounds like this will fall under that same umbrella. Is that right, or?
No, I think that is FI. And the thing is, we do have FI. We learn through pain. At some point in your life, you didn't take good care enough of something and it died or something, probably. I don't know. But I take really good care of the cats as well. I don't really do a lot of harm prevention in the sense that I'm not like chasing off predators or anything, but certainly we take excellent care of them, and I feel a lot of responsibility when I do have care responsibilities for something, but I just try to minimize the amount of things I have care responsibilities for. We have 2 cats, and that's all the caregiving I want to do,
Heck yeah.
Different people experience their FI a little differently, but the thing to remember for both of us is that it's an absolute value, whereas being correct is something we do as a matter of course, our day-to-day going about business. But what our feelings and that's actually what matters to us. That's what's an absolute value. We just can't trust them, and we try to avoid bad ones as much as possible.
All right, sounds good. We're nearing the end of our list here. There was one that you asked. I only heard you use this FI question one time, and maybe it's because you didn't like it or something. But I wanted you I wanted to ask you if you could retell it to me, because this was the question where I first thought, oh snap, I really might have this FI polar thing. But it was what I call the sad apple story. It was something like if we harvest apples on Wednesday, then I'll be full. If we harvest apples on Thursday, I'll be sad. If we do something on Friday, and at the end, you were like, what can we conclude? And me and the person you were typing were both off wandering around in the wilderness talking about, do we eat the apples on Tuesday because we're hungry already? And you go, no, you're sad. That was the answer. What we can determine is I'm sad. And I was like,
that was a TI question, though. That was a TI question run amok. I don't know.
All right.
that would be an FI question. Here's some other FI questions I have asked. Sure. Which would you rather drown first, a kitten or a puppy, if you had to drown one?
I did hear that. I heard that one before. The first time I heard it, I imagined myself, because I imagined myself in this situation, talking where we knew it would be public. I imagined myself giving like a big outward reaction so the people at home wouldn't think I was a terrible person. And my answer was going to be the puppy because I thought it would die faster.
Classic bipolar answer. That is the absolute classic answer. And the reason people who are TI2 will answer the question like that is because when somebody asks us a question, we understand what the words mean and expect ourselves to provide an answer to it. It's like, I get this is a hypothetical. This is not a real situation. I'm not actually drowning something. So you're asking me which would I drown if I had to. I'm going to give you an answer. I'm not going to object to the question. I'm not going to try to refuse to drown anything. I'm going to I'm going to think about it and give you the best answer. And another answer I heard was the puppy because it would scratch less. Which is a very bipolar answer indeed, right?
Yes. So let's see. Okay, we're almost at the end here. One thing is, one of the I saw one of your second slot TI seems to be recognizable from the way that you talk about it. Like I saw the. I watched one of your videos one time. You were showing, I was kind of dozing off, and you were showing little compilations, little clips of the various typings. And I was dozing off, and I heard Mackenzie, the gal talking about the scratch one. I heard Mackenzie talking, and she was giving this argument, and it sounded so much like me in every argument I ever have constructed that I actually kind of woke up for a little bit, looked over and saw ESTP, and I was like, oh shit, I might be that, because that's shit sounds good. Well, now we both know that that's irrelevant because ENTP and ESTP both have second slot TI, but that's what I heard. Like when I heard second slot TI. So my question here is second slot TI particularly noticeable other than, like over other slots? Is that how you were able to point out second slot TI versus some other slot in that Mackenzie poll?
No, it's more like trying to distinguish between the 7 and the 8. So I don't really have a great definitive test for FI polar, although pretty consistently people with TI tool will answer in one of those FI polar ways. But the reason I mean it's not reliably consistent is that it's easy to game. If you know the question and my expected answers ahead of time, then you can easily game that. Unlike a skills test, right, where you can't really game those.
Yes.
So I don't really have a definitive FI polar test, nor do I have a definitive SE polar test. But I do have very definitive NE polar tests. So if they're TI1, I can distinguish that by, if they're ISTP, then I'll find out that they're not TI2 that way. Determining the difference between ENTP and INTP is hard, actually. It can be quite, I don't really have a good definitive test for it because I don't have a good test for SE blind spot and I don't have a definitive test for FI blind spot. Although usually INTPs will answer FI questions differently.
Sounds good. Let's see, and Eric, that's it. I really just wanted to ask about how do I get involved? Like, where do the cool kids go to hang out? Where do you,
I don't really know any place that to hang out except I do live stream fairly often and people come into the chat and I like it when people ask questions and want to talk about topics. Sometimes we're just talking about whatever, but I do live stream. I try to live stream every day pretty much, and I don't really know if I try to. I just end up live streaming every day. But yeah, as far as typology community goes, unfortunately, I have a rather low opinion of typology outside of this area of my little area of YouTube because I think people don't do a good job with understanding things, explaining things, or being rigorous in their thinking about it at all.
Well, when I found, well, I don't want to throw dirt on the rest of the guys, but I found your channel and I quit looking at the rest of them because you know, the same kind of stuff, same kind of stuff. Because I think you got a good thing going. You know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do.
Let's see. Before we end off here, is there anything else that I wanted to catch? That is it, man. That is it. So I appreciate you being willing to do a second half today.
Absolutely.
I really count myself. You know, this might be the last time I talk to you, man. So I count myself as lucky to have been able to, get typed by the dude that stays up all night doing Adderall and mushrooms and might take bong rips. That's we're the same kind of guys here, Eric. It's all right.
Right now I'm the guy who's getting ready for significant dental surgery and a huge car repair bill, so I'm not feeling very party forward at the moment, but I know I'll be back. I'll be back soon enough.
You'll be back in no time, man. No time. No time at all.
All right. So are you comfortable with me publishing it?
Oh, yeah. One last thing I wanted to say is I did hear you say that you talked about the ESTPs you knew playing drums. I just had to say I played drums too.
All right. All right. Anyway. Classic.
See you later, man.
So are you comfortable with me publishing this video?
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Later. Bye.